Good morning, folks. It's the 26th of February. This is the day before Biden signs over the stewardship of the United States, the sovereignty of the United States to the United Nations in the name of health, if you will. He's going to give everything over to the World Health Organization, which, of course, is headed up by the gates of hell, Bill Gates, and the Chi-Coms, and all of those folks. So you need to understand that tomorrow your president hands you over to your enemies. And Bill Gates is a Radonite. He is one of those corrupt son of a bitches out of Babylon. Definitely the beast system, which is written about in the Bible extensively. I just happened to pick up my Bible, open to Zechariah 14, the last chapter of Zechariah. We are going to go through that, and I'll try not to interrupt myself very much. And this is a little bit different than what I expected. This I've read before, but I haven't read this particular version, the proper name version, many times. So this is somewhat, well, it's new to me again. Okay, just got a simple message from somebody who puts Ruth Bader Ginsburg on her wall. I'm sorry, lady. What do we have in common? Seriously, I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is your heroine? I'm sorry. She's a Radonite, a Canaanite. Zechariah 14:1. Behold, the day of Yahweh comes, and your spoil shall be divided in the midst of you. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half the city shall go into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then Yahweh shall go forth and fight against those nations, as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof towards the east and towards the west. And there shall be a very great valley. Half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And you shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach Azal. Yes, you shall flee like as you fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. And Yahweh my God shall come, and all the saints with you. And it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be as clear, nor dark. But it shall be one day which shall be known to Yahweh, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. And it shall be in that day that living waters shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea, and half of them toward the hinder sea. In summer, in winter shall it be. And Yahweh shall be king over all the earth. In that day shall there be one Yahweh, and his name one. All the land shall be turned as a plain from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem. And it shall be lifted up and inhabited in her place, from Benjamin's gate to the palace of the first gate, to the corner gate, and from the lower of Hananiel to the king's wine presses. And men shall dwell in it, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. And this people shall be the plague which Yahweh will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. This shall be the plague. Their flesh shall rot away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall rot away in their holes, and their tongue shall rot away in their mouth. Does that not sound like a nuclear war? Exposure to radiation sickness. And it shall come to pass in that day that a great tumult from Yahweh shall be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. And Judah also shall fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the heathen round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver and apparel in great abundance. And so shall be the plague of the horse, of the mule, of the camel, and of the donkey, and of all the beasts shall be in those tents as this plague. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, Yahweh of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whoever will not come up of all the families of the earth to Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahweh of hosts, even them shall there be no rain. Even upon them shall be no rain. And if the family of Egypt does not go up and comes not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague, with which Yahweh will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Egypt, and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. In that day shall there be upon the bells of the horses holiness unto Yahweh. And the pots in Yahweh's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. Yes, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holiness unto Yahweh of hosts. And all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them, and boil therein. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of Yahweh of hosts. I got a little bit highlighted, and I got underlined. Underlined is the word the Canaanite, no more in the house of Yahweh of hosts. And what I marked off earlier is that when I first read this in the original King James Version in the Old English, it sounded like half the people in Jerusalem were going to be killed, half of them taken in captivity, and that a residue would be left, and that then Yahweh would step in and fight like he did in the days of old for the Israelites. That I don't pull for here from this version of the Bible anymore. But still what stands out is this disease that destroys them, that their flesh shall rot away in the holes, and their tongue shall rot away in their mouth, their eyes shall rot away. Their flesh shall rot away while I stand upon their feet. It sounds like radiation sickness to me. And I am taken to Ephesians 2:11 and the footnotes in here, so I'm going to try to find that really quickly. I don't have a tab Bible, and I don't know the order of the New Testament as well as the Old Testament. The books in the New Testament are much shorter for one. Ephesians 2:11. We're going to that because this Bible directs us there so we can understand this. And this is the final verse of Zechariah. That's interesting. I went too far. 2:11, circled. Therefore remember that you being in past time Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. It gets a little bit confusing. Why? Canaanites are easily understood, descendants of Cain, a people with mixed satanic DNA, spawn of Satan. That's easily understood. But what's harder to understand, Gentiles, that word, I just went over it with a friend of mine, and he tried to explain it to me. And I still have problems with it, because it appears it means nations in some places. In other places, it refers to non-Jews. And in other places, it refers to what I call a quagmire, because I don't think it's very clear. You see, when the Israelites were dispersed, I think they became known as Gentiles. And they were Israelites in dispersion. And they became Hellenized. They spoke the Greek language. They became the Greeks. And so that's a difficult time period for me. And I think it's a difficult time period for the rest of us to understand. Why I was drawn to this part of the Bible, I don't know. Maybe this is about to be fulfilled. This is definitely in the future. This is the day of Yahweh. This is one of about 6 different days of the Lord, different days of Yahweh. And in this one, the great earthquake occurs. And we have the land, the mountains, the valleys, all that being divided. And we also have waters coming out of Jerusalem, the water of life. And I think this is critical in that it looks like the Canaanites are actually in the house of Yahweh of hosts today. The Canaanites are in the tabernacle. The Canaanites are mixed among the peoples who claim they are Israelites. And how did that happen? About 148 BC to 143 BC, a period of 5 years, you had the Maccabean revolt. It ended with John Hyrcanus coming into power. And what did John Hyrcanus do? He made what I would call a strategic mistake, a critical mistake. And that was he told the Edomites at Mount Seir, Mount Edom, that they could live provided they were circumcised and they worshiped the one true God. The interesting thing is that is pretty much what was offered by Shem to his nephew Canaan earlier in the Bible. Canaan was worshiping other gods. He had a publicly held religion that was practiced in the groves in public. And as a result of his slaying by his uncle, and his body, he was dismembered, and Shem sent parts of his body around to the other tribes, the other families, saying, if you keep doing this stuff to the children, passing them through the fire, doing these weird sexual practices in the groves, then this is what's going to happen to you. I'm going to kill you. And Shem was a great warrior. He went into Egypt, and there is a stone at the border of Egypt that Shem left, saying Shem went into Egypt. There found every evil and did battle against it. Some really wicked stuff came out of Egypt and mixed into the Babylonian stuff. And today we're dealing with this. And my buddy pointed out that the Radonites in Babylon had to have come from earlier in the genealogies in Genesis. And I don't think I can find that right now, and I don't know it well enough to go over it with you. But I'm going to try to find it because this is important stuff. And maybe by teaching it to you, I might learn it myself. I dog-eared this stuff. I bent those pages over because I didn't want to lose them. And I just went past the first one. I think it was Genesis 36. This is important. I'm going to give it to you from the conversation yesterday. Genesis 36. These are the dukes of the sons of Esau. This is important. You see, Esau had sons and they were called dukes. And today they are the CEOs. They are the Radonites that are in charge, running the beast system. So they are the CEOs of the world today. So we're doing a little bit of identification today for you. And let me see if I can get into this other one, which was very important as well. Aha! I got this wrong, and my buddy, the teacher, corrected me. And here we go to Genesis 25, which I dog-eared. Verse 16, these are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their towns and by their castles, 12 princes according to their nations. Well, I screwed up and I said that he had 12 dukes. Turns out Ishmael's sons were called princes. That's the proper term in the Bible. And today those are the oil barons. And they're the princes of the sand, if you will. So those are the descendants of Ishmael today. Now, Ishmael's an interesting dude because he was okay, meaning he was one of us. Ishmael was the son of Hagar, the bondwoman, and Abraham. But the Ishmaelites today are claiming that Isaac was their father. Oh no, Isaac came after Abraham. Isaac was not their father, Abraham was. So they don't tell us the full truth. They don't seem to understand that. Here's the real problem. It was Ishmael or one of his children or one of his grandchildren that took a Canaanite woman to wife. And that is when the line of Ishmael went haywire, and they went bad. But as far as Esau goes, we have that down in spades in the Bible, because Esau sold his inheritance for a bowl of red porridge, thus becoming known as Edom. And what is in the Bible specifically is that he took an Edomite woman to wife. Well, he took a Canaanite woman to wife. And when he saw how much it upset his parents, Rebekah and Isaac, he took a second one to wife. In other words, he rebelled against his parents and his heritage, and he rubbed his noses in it by marrying a second Canaanite woman, a second woman of the land, a second woman with satanic DNA. So, what ended up happening? He was disowned. And even though he repented, he realized what he had done. He realized, because Yahweh told him, you don't marry outside the family. If you do, you're out of the family. He was excommunicated. And even though he repented in great tears, there was no forgiveness found for him. So you need to understand that not everybody can be saved. Not everyone can be forgiven. Not all sins are covered. That sin was not covered, and he was stuck with it. And the Edomites are the ones we're dealing with to a large extent today. And somehow or other, they ended up in Babylon. And the genealogies here in Genesis link up with that neighborhood. I haven't figured that one out yet. Somebody out there might understand it. If you do, please chime in. So, where we are at today is the Radonites ruled the planet. They have taken over the government in the United States of America. They control all of our corporations. And Eustace Mullins wrote about the world order. He didn't write about the New World Order. And that was very accurate of him not to put the word new in front of it. Whereas most of you run around yapping about the New World Order. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's no New World Order. That is packaging and marketing. It is part of their lies and deception. They're trying to sell you on a concept as if it was new. From what I can tell, these folks have been on the planet and have been through a half a dozen Earth ages along with the rest of the inhabitants. And they've come out on top every time. But we're at the end of the Earth age. And we are supposed to take them out this point in time. And I can tell you a little bit about the future according to some of my brothers, but I don't agree with their reading, and I haven't found it, so I'm not going to convey that to you. Basically, it comes down to we're going to rule the place for 1,000 years, and the earthlings are going to rebel again. That's what they say. I think if we're fortunate here in these United States of America, we recover our nation, and we take over and reestablish the republic, we might have a Pax Americana, which could last 1,000 years. And then all hell's going to break loose again. That's what I think is in the cards, to be honest with you. But in order for the Earth, Mother Earth, to survive, we've got to beat them on this time. And when they go into their dumbs and underground to survive, those of us who are on the surface, who remain, are going to have to be prepared for when they come out, when they emerge, and we're going to have to hunt them down. And it's not going to be us. It's not going to take just our children. It'll be our grandchildren that continue this hunt. You need to understand that the evil ones have done this across several Earth ages, about 70 to 72,000 years in my estimation. That's the best guess I can come up with. So they were driven here that long ago And they've managed to rule this place since then and dig in even deeper each time. And in case you're wondering, the previous Earth ages, the civilizations were greater than what we have today. And the people were stronger, much stronger than what we have today. They were greater men, greater women. My God. One of the, what was that? The female Cro-Magnon woman could rip a modern man apart with her arms, with her bare hands. She was so strong. That doesn't to me mean that they were superior, but when you look at the technologies and the architecture and the stuff that survived and some of the technologies that were preserved and taken away from us, you realize that they were far more advanced than we were. They probably had free electricity around the whole planet, free energy, and all those things you've heard about and myths and all that were probably quite true. What Eustace Mullins wrote about was the interlocking corporate boards. Same people are on the corporate board, so they control all of this stuff. It is a small, tiny group. And if you look at it a little bit closer than that, and he didn't go this far, but if you follow my line of logic, it turns out that all of these corporations come down to one big corporation, and there's just one corporation on the planet, and that's from under your holy see, and that's out of canon law. And you have the King of England, who is incorporated underneath canon law, and most of the free world, the English-speaking world, is incorporated under the King of England. They took us over. It's really a giant shell game. They've owned the United States of America since probably the War of 1812. They've had their mitts into us, and we never threw them off. We do need to throw those bastards off this time and throw them out. That means restoring the original 13th Amendment. The original 13th Amendment barred any member of the Bar Association from any and all citizenship in these several states. You understand that? That was because they were beholden to the British Crown, the British Accreditation Registry or Regency. They ruled this country for the King of England or the Queen of England. And that's been going on in this country for a couple hundred years at this point. So when you say you're the land of the free and the home of the brave, no, you are enslaved. This is a slave system. And at least the people in the Orient who you think are poor and impoverished know this truth about you. Know this truth about America. They know more about it than you do. They have written records that go back much further, and they document the arrival of the fallen ones, of the evil ones, of the white devils. That's right. They look like you or I, which is why the Chinese call us all white devils in their own language, which interprets the Caucasoid here. They formed a religion based upon that, the dragons they worshipped. And they go out and prospect for dragon's teeth, which basically are the teeth of giants, because those people who have the satanic fallen angel DNA in them are trying to keep their strength. So they want to consume those teeth, and they pay out the butt for them. They probably take the whole skeletons and grind those up in their, their thirst and quest to keep those fallen angelic strengths and powers going. No, I don't think it's magic, but I think there's something to it. I think it's real and it's physical, and it's not just spiritual. You may be relegated to fighting this as a spiritual war, but they aren't. Hell, they're doing this chemical warfare on you right now. They're releasing dioxins all over the place to kill us for decades, centuries perhaps. We don't know how long it'll take to clean that stuff up. And we are going to have to take this place back so we can get to work on cleaning it up. And it's going to take us 1,000 years to correct all their bullshit and their errors, their poisons and toxicity that they expose this planet to. I didn't realize I knew so much sometimes, but I get to talking and I get carried away. You need to understand a few more things than I do. You need to read this Bible, and you need to let it open your minds up and sort things out. You need to read the extra biblical books as well. You need to understand that everything that you've been given in this is what the Roman Catholic Church the beast system on the earth allows you to have. They don't want you to have all the good stuff that they have because they're running the show. They are the beast system. That is the Antichrist corporation. It is a corporation. It is an institution. It's institutionalized. I do think there'll be an Antichrist man showing up embodied in somebody, but I'm not quite sure who it is. Who would you guess out of all the men alive right now at this moment in time in history would be the Antichrist? Who is it that you think would be the man of lawlessness? Who is it that you would think would be the Judas goat, Judas Iscariot? They're about to pull some weird frauds on you. Yeah, out of the Ukraine, out of the original Khazarian Empire, at which the Edomites took over, and the Radonites took over as well. And from that, they've taken over the entire planet. It is a one world order. It's already here. Don't kid yourselves. You and I are just pawns in this whole game. We're just cogs in the massive machinery that's going on. We happen to have a little bit more awareness than the other folks, and we suffer more because of it. What did Yahshua say? He said, don't be deceived. Okay? And he said, stand your ground. Those were his two commands, mentioned twice in the New Testament. So that's what your job is right now, is to avoid being deceived. That's a big job. The brainwashing is all across the planet at this point. Nobody escapes their brainwashing. Not fully, not completely, not even Dr. Kent. You understand that? We're all stuck in this system. We're stuck with their language traps in particular. The Tower of Babel. The language of Babel that they gave to us, with all the dual meanings and language traps, and the enslavement thereof. The Bible will set you free if you read it and press into it. It does not open itself up to the casual reader. But you need to get one of these Bibles before they're no longer available, because I have a feeling that we are going to go through a famine of the word of the Lord, a famine of the word of Yahweh. I think that's coming. Don't hold me to it, but I'm worried about it, and I'm worried for you. May Yahweh bless. I think we went long enough. So this is Zechariah 14. And there's biological war in the minor prophets as well. Maybe we'll cover that next time. May Yahweh bless you. May he protect you. May he guide your steps. May he set out some steps for you that give you real good growth. Good things. Yahweh bless.